Hey there. Welcome to Spiritual Unraveling with Ashley and Nate, a podcast about the sometimes messy process of spiritual awakening. We invite you to listen in as we discuss spiritual topics and themes showing up in our personal lives and out in the broader world. We promise to always bring our grounded and lived experiences to the exploration of these topics. We know that the process of awakening can sometimes be lonely and even scary. It is our intention to remind you that you're not going through this alone and that we're all in this together. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Welcome everyone to Spiritual Unraveling with Ashley and Nate. We are talking about some big and kind of heavy topics this week, not probably for the main reason you're thinking post-election, but because of just personal things coming up in our lives that are really big and momentous. And we're moving into a discussion about just taking full ownership over everything that's showing up in our lives. In conjunction with that, also removing the charge or the judgment from those things that are showing up and trying to move into a place of acceptance and allowance so that we can be in flow with the energy and not be resistant to what's showing up in our life. Because if it's showing up in our life, it's there for a reason. Yeah, so that's my kind of rambly intro, Ash. I don't know. I'm going to let you jump in real quick and say anything you'd like to say.
Well, this is really hard. We've probably talked about this before. We've circled this before, but, accepting everything in your life, everything that happens to you, that has happened to you, that you experience, to see that or own that you, as the creator of your reality, have drawn those experiences in. It's hard for people to take full ownership of that. We have sort of a psychological trapping in our culture of victimhood and pointing a finger and judgment and us, them, and we spend a lot of time in that. So this is just a detour, kind of disrupting to that. It is a detour from that to really say, okay, if this is showing up in my life, it must be for me, something for me. And I listened to one guy talking this week. I don't remember his name. He showed up on my YouTube feed and I'd never seen him before, but he said something about, he was talking about the election and for people who may be, feeling grief or disappointment or anxiety about the results of the election. And he was saying, think about the worst thing, the thing you've labeled as the worst thing that ever happened to you. Most of the time, it's also the best thing that ever happened to you. Maybe it changed your life in some really profound way. And when you're in the midst of it, it's hard to have that perspective. But that's what we're sort of bringing in today, this idea of bringing in that acceptance before you can really see the silver lining or the growth or the opportunity. Maybe when you're just in the rawness of the experience, that even then you can bring in this allowing or this acceptance.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to delve into the politics part of it. Just, I guess what I can say for myself just around all of this stuff is I have found it very interesting that, we just get very comfortable with contained kind of thinking. I think as human beings, we have a hard time really understanding infinite possibility. We have a hard time understanding that we are creators. We have a hard time understanding that everything that's showing up in our life is some kind of nugget or experience that we can mine, and that are probably, my belief system is that there's your higher self, your soul is interested in one thing, and that's growth and having experiences. And that in the human world, in this 3D kind of dense reality that we're in, we get plugged into this idea that things are good, things are bad. It's very binary. And we can't help, because of our monkey brains, to just sort things and just kind of want to categorize things. And that's okay. That's fine. And that works, for a while. But it's definitely a limited perspective. And I think it's also, once we start dabbling into metaphysics and we start really contemplating the nature of existence and going into these really big things, we realize that there is just no way that if there's a God or a creator or a force out there, that it has judgment about things being good or bad. It just creates, it's just like life comes forward and it happens, and it's funny, it's ugly, it's loud, it's quiet, it's messy, it's all of it. And it's important for us to realize that it's okay to have a human reaction to something big or profound happening in your life. That's normal. But then it's also important to take a deep breath, remind yourself you exist. Say, I exist. I am that I am. I am a creator. And pivot, and just in that moment, just say, what's here for me? It doesn't have to be good, but just that tweak. And it's still very flawed and very human, but it's a tweak. It's an access point to give you a different perspective on something big happening in your life, whether it's world events or personal events. So that's kind of what it made me think about.
There's so much in our reactions, right? We can have a reaction and then we can look at that. We can use the information that arises without judgment. If we judge it, we're trying to get rid of it. We won't take that opportunity to see what's there. So if I have resistance, or I'm upset, or I'm unwilling to be with whatever's arising in my life, then I look at the resistance. What's that about? You can use whatever comes up as a point of exploration to know yourself more, to know yourself better. I was kind of thinking when you were talking, this random thought that it's all moving towards the realization that we are infinite love. Like, you know, like, is that what it's all really for? Like, it's experience and everything, but there are these moments where you can, not just intellectually, like it's fun to toy around with the concept, but to really experience deep in your knowing, in your body, and your intuition, the realization of non-judgment, the realization of being loved by life, being deeply, deeply held in even the most tragic experience of your life. To know that in your body, and then to realize you are that you are a co-creator. You're part of that. You're not a victim of that love. You know what I mean? You're not just the recipient. You did that. You created that experience. And for this realization, and even if you hold that as just a kind of cool byproduct of these experiences in life, but I kind of suspect ultimately that's what it's all for. That's what it feels like to me. It certainly feels better to have those moments of realization.
Absolutely. If you're going to choose.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I will go there. I will go there about the election, because it's alive for a lot of people right now. And my one thing I'll just say about any experience that you have in life that you have a strong reaction to. I don't like this. This doesn't feel good to me. And you maybe start to create a victim mindset about. And I wonder if this is where you were going with the tweak, just tweaking things. But it's also, okay, if that's not my preference, what is my preference? And I'm in control of how I live my life, how I treat people, what I'm open to, what I want to create in my own family, in my own work, in my own day-to-day life. What energy am I cultivating in my own psyche? How am I treating myself? All of these things are in our control. We don't have control over what happens, what other people choose, but we have control over what we choose. And to own and recognize that sovereignty, that creator, when things happen in life that don't, I'm trying to be general, that we don't agree with, that's an opportunity to kind of step into your own power. Well, what do I want? If I don't like that, what do I like?
Yeah. Well, I'll go back in and I'll be more explicit about what I saw. And I'm saying this both what I witnessed in my personal sphere with friends and family, and also in my social network sphere and what I was seeing out there in the media and everything. What came up for me as like a really deep trigger was the narrowness with which people look at their lives. And I just think no matter who is in the White House, that is a system of power that is powerful if you let it be. It's an exemplar, it's a way of looking at the way we have as a culture offset our personal power. I'm talking about our individual, that I am creator power, of how we've given it away to other people, we've given it away to institutions. We let things like the media create a narrative around two-party system. I mean, just the very basic thing that there are other countries in the world who have multiple parties, and then you don't have to pick two not very good choices. What I noticed, like just from this kind of macro level, is, what's going on with people's thinking, that they're getting so easily shoved into this narrative, and they're not able to kind of break out into this broader perspective and say, somebody's creating this narrative. This is just BS. This is, and also this bigger ownership and responsibility of your life that says no matter who is in charge of that thing, the White House, which is in itself just a power dynamic, it's a matrix, it's a pendulum. My life and my sovereignty and what happens in my energetic field is the thing I have control of. What people realize, and what I was seeing, I guess, that I'm having a reaction to, and I'll just make it more explicit, was just this massive reaction of people giving away their power, both giving away their power in the negative when they were upset, and giving their way in the hooray power of the positive because they think this person or thing that's happening with the winning party is going to save them. And all of it is total crap, because it's a way of offsetting your power and what we started this conversation about, which is extreme ownership, like taking ownership of what's showing up in your life. That includes all of this mess. And the only way we're going to start making inroads and fixing some of this dysfunction that we see is by becoming more sovereign in taking control of aspects of our life, and not being like, I don't have the bandwidth, so I'm going to let this Yahoo take care of it. I don't know. So like this just, for me, the election was this very big eye opener about the really big difference. There's a lot of talk around ascension and 3D and 5D and different timelines and all of that. And what I saw just at a very practical level is, where are people giving their power away? It's all around. That includes all of your, you're okay to have reactions, but then you have to do that pivot. Otherwise, you're caught up in the momentum of their power system. And that's just a total waste of everyone's energy. And it feeds that system. And I, for one, don't want to feed that system anymore. So I pull my energy back. I acknowledge that it's there. And then I turn and I look at things in my life and in my world that I want to give my energy towards. And I don't feed that. And that's like, to me, that's like part of being the sovereign creator. There's how you take back some of your power.
Yeah, I love that. You're talking about a revolution of personal responsibility. And I love that you're fired up about it. And I also see that I think a lot of people don't know about this. I mean, I just think I didn't know. I didn't know about sovereignty. I didn't know about personal responsibility and power, or to see through what's been created. So it's, this process of waking up is, in a lot of ways, it challenges the status quo. It challenges our whole idea. I mean, there's a whole breakdown of how you see yourself in relationship with the outside world. And it can be really difficult and challenging for people. But those of us who are on this path and are, waking up to all of this, I feel like there's this other piece around the energetics of it all, and the energetics of division, the energetics of victimhood, the energetics of personal responsibility, the energetics of sovereignty, the energetics of having the courage to own your life. And as we're all playing with these energetics, because we're all connected, we're all part of this one kind of web of energy and creation, that those of us who are disrupting that in our awakening to this reality we're affecting change in that way. There's a way to just know what create your life, know what you know, be yourself, be in your truth, and that has such a powerful effect. So I think that what happens when people give their power away, there's this helplessness, like, I need to take on the whole thing. We need to course correct. We need to fix this. This doesn't feel good to me. When you pull back into your own energy, your own choices, your own mindset, your own, even just the way, I mean, I was talking about just the way you talk to yourself, let alone how you treat other people, how you treat yourself. If we can start there, start with the truth of who you are and then move out, you'll start to see the power of just that energetic shift, how that starts to create change just in your world, just in what you're bringing into your own reality, how you feel about your life, how you start to feel differently about yourself. I think awakening is where it's at. I think I don't know. I don't see a lot of answers inside the matrix, although many people will stay and do just fine and survive and do their thing. It's not a requirement, but I think for the sake of this conversation, you're talking about a revolution, but I think it's a love revolution. It's like a realization revolution. And it doesn't carry the energy of division. It doesn't carry the energy of judgment, and it doesn't carry the energy of victimhood. So when all of that is getting triggered in whatever's playing out in the outside world, it's like just an opportunity to look at those parts in yourself, and anything that's not love is worth looking at, because not true. You give me that feedback all the time.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's in some way the most powerful large scale decision you can make is the inner revolution, is looking at your own energy and at your own patterns, the way you talk to yourself, the way you believe about things, even things where we feel really justified. Those are great things to look at. Something is feeding that justification, right? There's a story under there, and it's probably a limiting one that is somehow feeding into that. I watch this woman who does these monthly updates, and she always starts them by saying, "The light in me sees the light in you." And I love that, because it's like, that is it. Just that realization that, like, I am whole, I exist, you are whole, you exist, everything has value because it exists. And then let's move off and make decisions, have preferences, do whatever we all like to do. But that revolutionary in this culture, knowing to really sit with that and say, I see you fully, I acknowledge you completely, and now let's move forward like that. And it has to start within. So, because there's always a reconciliation of the parts of you that have been left out, or the parts of you that have been built up by the system, and coming into just this very true stripped down nature, like, I am that I am, I exist, and so does everybody else. And now from that place you move off, but you're moving off in wholeness, you're moving off in sovereignty. And so if you can really hold that truth, all the decisions that come out after that are going to be solid. They might not be 100%, but you're talking about, like, wow, you have just, like, up leveled so many things by just that acknowledgement of truly seeing yourself, truly seeing other people, knowing that your energies are separate, but that we're all together in this dance. And then for some people, it's just, that's a whole system of thought that needs to be broken down. Some parts of the matrix need to be broken down for them, and other parts of their identity need to be built back up so that they can see that truth. But I think people glimpse it in moments of kind of intensity and things like that, or when things just
Yeah.
get very clear, you know?
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot more people are interested in if not this, then what?
Hmm.
Like we get to this point where it's like, well, this is not working.
Yeah.
This is not working. If I'm in pursuit of happiness, this doesn't seem to be working because if I live in the realm of judgment, then I'm just sort of toggling back and forth between those things. If I So there's a point where I think we start to say this isn't working. I kind of see it as an infinite path of purification. I really think that a huge part of the acceleration of what you're talking about is this willingness to see what hasn't wanted to be seen inside of yourself with respect to the culture or your family of origin or just your denial basically. We're all we've all been walking around for a long time with a lot of denial. I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about that, but we're in this time of awakening. We're in a time where we can see. How do we even know what we're seeing through? I mean, maybe we're in a different kind of bubble. Who the hell knows? But
Yeah.
but there's some felt sense of freedom. There's a felt sense of more quiet, more peace, less being tugged around, less victimhood when you have this willingness to see and look at your own stuff and your own denial. That is just a tall order, for how at least you and I were raised. I mean, I was raised with 17 elephants in the room that you weren't allowed to talk about, but I think a lot of people were.
Yeah.
I think it just was the time, it just, we weren't quite there yet. And now we are. Now we're at a time where there's more of the information. We're all in this crazy information time. We sort of know everything. It's all in our face, and it's like, are we willing to see it? Are we willing to deal with the emotions? Are we willing to love ourselves through the unfolding and the letting go of who we thought we were to come in to more of who we really are? And I was talking in our in-person Sangha last night. We were talking about this sense of aliveness that sometimes gets missing in adulthood a little bit, as where you get trapped in the doing and who we think we're supposed to be and the shoulds and everything. And we were talking about that kind of childlike sense of aliveness. One woman said, when you're riding your bike and you've got your feet like this and you just think this is the best feeling in the whole world. And so we were exploring this idea of just this sense of aliveness. Well, I think aliveness is our birthright, but aliveness doesn't necessarily mean you're only ever going to feel good. Aliveness is sort of living on this edge of actually self-realization and the truth of life. But it does bring up this sense of aliveness. And I think aliveness is something that we're supposed to feel. I think we're meant to feel. I think we're hooked up to feel, like our bodies are orchestrated to bring in this aliveness. Is probably like part of our well-being and our physical health and our mental health and our emotional well-being is all connected to aliveness. And I just thought it was a really interesting conversation to have, especially in the if not that, then what?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I've been pulling different oracle cards and different things for, I do that all the time. But I've been having a run of play, these cards that come that are just about play. Set aside time for play. And I think that that's similar to what you're talking about, that aliveness. And it's, I went on a hike this morning. I know you hike a lot. That's why we get into nature and we start ambulating, we start walking around, breathing, not plugged in, and all of a sudden you're alive. You're really feeling it. You're in the moment. And I think the other piece that you're circling is the idea of presence, of really present moment, that there is no real past, there is no future. Those are all just things that you're mentally doing when you go back into the files or project out into the future. It's all happening now. And I think the beauty of play or being intentionally alive or doing something that makes you feel alive is that it narrows the bandwidth of things that can pull your focus, and it just brings you very immediately into the moment. And I agree, there are other things that can do that for you that aren't pleasant. But I think we all know, if we have, you've been on this earth for 40 plus years, the kind of strange intensity that happens around a really profound big thing, even if it's scary. Like, you really come into yourself. There's a part of you that becomes deeply alive. I was thinking about, like, during the Tubbs fires and the fires when in Santa Rosa when we were there. Yeah, there's a sharpness. I think that probably happens in war zones. I think that probably happens to people who have really tumultuous home lives. There's this really intense aliveness that happens, and that's good because that pulls you into the present. And then what you do with that, that's kind of what we're talking about, and how you make sense of all of that stuff and how you integrate those kind of moments. Yeah, that's the key. Because
Or how you start to let go of anything but the present moment.
Right. It's a lot about flow. Flow is the other thing that was kind of popping into my head too. Presence and flow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then a willingness to just be with whatever is arising.
Yeah.
And then a willingness, and then a real intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
First maybe a willingness, and then a real intimacy with whatever's arising, a real connection or presence.
Yeah, I like that word because we started off the talking about ownership, and, like, looking at everything that's showing up in your life is showing up for you, from you, literally from you, because you are the creator. So there is a really deep intimacy. I mean, that's the most intimate you're going to get is you and you with these moments. Yeah, it's a deep, deep invitation to be present, to be in the flow, and to move into a place of appreciation, appreciation and gratitude. I love them both, but sometimes I think it can be triggering if people have those associated with bad things. I just mean an awareness and acceptance of what is also from you. In that, in really intense times with really big things happening, that is a powerful, powerful moment. If you can turn and look it right in the face, there's something here for me. There's a part of me that is in full acceptance of this, and I'm not going to resist it. It's it's the energy. It's the energy of the now, of what's showing up. And do I want to be in resistance to the flow of that energy and get kind of beat up by it, or do I want to turn and go with it and see what it has for me? Because I set this up. You're the one who set it up.
Totally. Well, that's like, it comes back to this word sovereignty that you were using.
Yeah.
Either you're believing in the shoulds, either you're believing in your familial or cultural idea of who you should be, and you're just desperately trying to be that and never quite succeeding. If you succeed, then what? My goodness, then what do you do? Yeah.
It's so hard.
or you're in this absolutely beautiful, exquisite unfolding of the mystery of you in a body, in relationship to this wonder and magic. It's like that sovereignty brings you home to this incredible truth of being human, and in the unfolding of contrast and experience and pain and suffering and joy, in the contrast of love and fear. I mean, just the whole, anger, all of it that you get to experience. But the sovereignty of there is no wrong way. There's the truth of who you are, and you get to create that on a moment to moment basis. It's just a game changer. It's a completely different path of living and being. And I think that's, for me, the greatest gift of my life that I've realized is that old pursuit of whatever the shoulds were, that the shoulds of me, that I don't have to keep that going, and I get to just follow the thread of my intuition. I get to follow the thread of what is, of what shows up, that I'm participating in creating all of that, that my unfolding, my realization is happening in perfect time with my higher self, that, like, I'm looked after, I'm okay no matter what happens. It's just, yeah, it's a game changer. It's a really different path.
Yeah. The word that was coming up to me was boundless. Because sometimes the infinite feels, it's just such a big word. I don't even know, literally don't know. Can't conceptualize, right? And I like thinking about boundless opportunities in contrast to conventions or different, societal things, because one of them is putting things on you. It's like restricting you. And we get this. I mean, I get this. I love, like, some of the best art comes out of restriction, comes out of, like, here you got three colors in this, scrap of paper, make something, and I'll, like, you could see that with, like, cool reality shows like Project Runway or different things where the people are limited and then they create amazing things. But there's also this kind of dichotomy where boundless freedom can also feel kind of terrifying, I think. But at some point, you want to take this thing out and take it for a test spin. Your real I am creatorness. It's like you're living in a Honda Civic your whole life, and someone whispers you and says, you ever going to take that Ferrari out? And you're like, it's a Honda Civic. Yeah, whatever. Wipe your eyes, go take a look at that thing and see what it really is. Part of that is living in your imagination. Part of that is not accepting the limitations that have been put upon you or that people have told, stepping completely outside of the game and saying, oh, I get to do this however I want to do that. And I mean that with personal relationships, with my kind of macro level stuff, my micro level stuff. But there's a real sovereignty means taking ownership of that and saying, I'm willing to maybe be scared a little bit about how much possibility I have. From a very personal sharing, like, perspective, I feel like I've been in this for like 6 months, a year, of feeling like it's almost too much. It's almost too big. Like, how you start cracking open and then you're like, well, what do I do now? I think the important thing, and I'm saying this to myself as much as anyone else who's experienced this, is that's when you come back to the present moment. And what you were talking about, following threads, letting the energy guide the way. Trust that when you unshackle yourself and then you follow the energy, new and amazing things might happen. And also maybe some hard and difficult things might happen, but that you're on a really different trajectory.
Yeah. And really getting clear that your higher self may have a plan for you that doesn't fit so easily into the culture, or maybe it does. It doesn't fit so easily into the Ferrari lifestyle. Maybe it fits into the Honda Civic lifestyle. I mean, right. there's a way that we start to open up, and then it's like all over the map. But there is a timing to things. We see what we see when we're ready to see it. We create when we're ready to create. I think I just keep coming back to the two discoveries of the past few years of my life, which is courage and humility. How important courage and humility is, like, to be humbled by what your intuition is telling you, that it may not look the way you thought it was going to look, and having the courage to do it anyway, to follow through and trust that intuition, trust the thread. It's hard. It's like you're going to be wobbly a little bit at first because you're unraveling the old way of doing things. And I know for me, I'm a total recovering perfectionist. I always think I should know how to do everything the first time I try it. I just have always felt like that pressure and that expectation. And so to be in this, like, wobbly stage of life, letting myself learn something new, letting myself grow, letting myself see things, move through denial. I mean, there's not a lot of external, there's not a resume for that that I can go and show people and get credit or, like a validation. It's internal. But the reward, the feedback, the changes, the experience of being human is so vastly different and so deeply rewarding that, yeah, it's hard to even talk about because it's like a whole different, yeah, it's a whole different path. We keep coming back to that. It's a whole different path. It's a beautiful path, but it's not totally popular yet. It's just not totally popular yet. And so there's like this feeling is that when we, circling back to, I think what this episode was about was kind of taking personal responsibility for our lives, that part of it might be walking this path alone sometimes and not necessarily having it be popular, but doing it anyway and sharing it and inviting people to come into their own truth in whatever way feels right in any given moment. But what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the more you become really truly acquainted with your own personal energy and your essence, the more you just enjoy life, the more secure you are. And there's probably, I think there probably is an arc or a moment where on that journey, things get kind of whittled away and it really is just you and yourself for a while. And you have these kind of, we were talking about this earlier, where we have these realizations or these moments with even our deepest connections where you really feel and see the separation of the energy. And that can feel a little scary. But the flip side of that is the beauty of sovereignty, of saying, that's because my energy is mine and their energy is theirs. And when you reconnect in life as a whole person who's really in their sovereignty, then the way that you play with other people is magical. It's very different. I haven't met a lot of people like that, but the few people that I have who kind of have that real sense of who they are, and you feel safe because they feel safe, they know themselves, and there's just a real beautiful invitation there. And I think you do have to become willing to really love yourself, know yourself, be fully yourself before that part of you is ready to kind of go back out. And I think maybe for at least for me, I feel like I'm in that process right now, and it's strange to kind of be in the middle of the cocoon where you're like, I'm not the butterfly yet. I'm kind of this weird trying to reassimilate. But
I love that.
I'm
I'm so
owning it.
like,
I'm owning it.
you're owning it. I love it. I love it. I'm like perpetually in a cocoon. I think I come out and
Yeah.
I go right back in. So I'm like, I guess I'm just perpetually in a cocoon. It's fine, like I'm fascinated with the acceleration of time. I'm fascinated with the acceleration of healing that's available right now. I think it's magnificent and also terrifying. And I'm in. I've just agreed. Too late. I'm in. But I just want to say before we start to wind down is I'm so glad you brought self-acceptance in. Man, if there's anything I would say accelerates this process, it's self-love. It's just self-love. And however people find a way to work that, and I'm constantly catching myself and working on that and reminding myself, and that has been one practice that has really paid off the most, because you are all you have. You are all you have. And if we come back to this idea of a revolution, like if you're somebody who is interested in revolution right now, self-love is the first place to start.
Absolutely. It's like the cornerstone.
It's the cornerstone.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's beautiful because what you're saying, and this is just one more piece that it's making me think too, in this inner revolution that we're talking about, in the movement from the outer to the inner in self-love, you don't need to have the answers. You don't need to control, to manipulate, to project, to do any of it. All you need to do is accept yourself, acknowledge your existence, acknowledge your power, If you can do that for everybody else too, that'd be great. And then see what happens. I mean, that's the beautiful part. It's not like you need to do anything, just that radical realization. If even a tipping point of a certain percentage of people were living that, man, I think we would start looking at a different world. And I believe deeply that we are going there. It's just a matter of time, because I think everybody has the itch, has the pull to move into that place of sovereignty, into self-love, into acceptance, into wholeness. I mean, it's our journey. You're going to die and figure it out at the end, or come in a little earlier and join the party.
Totally. Well, that's a good place to stop. I really enjoyed this episode. Thanks, Nate.
It's fun. Thank you. Hey everyone, we hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions or feedback for us, please send us an email at spiritualunraveling@gmail.com. If you'd like to learn more about what we're both up to, you can follow Ashley at www.mountainmeditationgroup.com. And you can find more about what I'm doing at spiritual-stewardship.com. We hope you have a great day.